We're going to get right into it. If we can pull up the next slide. We're excited to kick off the conference with the first panel of the day, which I am honored to be moderating. We have 4 fantastic speakers with a wealth of experience in the cybersecurity space across the hemisphere. First, we have Karen Wetzel, who joined the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education as a manager of the NIST framework in October 2020. Karen specializes in identifying, communicating, and developing guidance around key issues, emerging trends, and opportunities of special interest. Next, we have Dr. Blair Taylor, who is an award-winning educator with over 20 years of experience in academia. She's a national expert in cybersecurity education and curriculum development, and worked with NSA's College of Cyber as a subject matter expert on long-term strategies to increase the pipeline of qualified students and build the nation's cyber workforce. Thereafter, we have Dr. Mary Graft, who consults in workforce development, cybersecurity educational programming, development, and editing of marketing collateral across industries, and she is currently with Arizona State University. And last but not least, we have Dr. Moniphia Hewling, who is founder and CEO of eMRock Digital Consultants and is a cyber crimes and security consultant, often referred to as a cyber crusader. Dr. Hewling is credited with being a member of Jamaica's National Cybersecurity Task Force that developed Jamaica's first national cybersecurity strategy as a company implementation plan. We're excited to have these 4 speakers, but I will start off by asking a generally broad question. We can pull a slide down, thank you. The question is, based on your respective experiences, what are some of the best practices related to cybersecurity curriculum development and tools that government and non-government organizations can use to build their cybersecurity resilience? So if I could start off with turning it over to Karen.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you everyone for having me here today. So I'm coming at this from a biased perspective. As manager of the NIST framework at NIST, obviously I'm going to point to the NIST framework as the tool, or a tool perhaps, to use when it comes to doing this work, to being able to make sure that we are developing the curriculum and tools that are necessary in this space. For those of you who aren't that familiar with the NIST framework, it is NIST Special Publication 800-181, was revised in November 2020, and its full name is the Workforce Framework for Cybersecurity. And it's the result of a partnership between government, academia, and the private sector. And really what it is a fundamental resource for describing and sharing information about cybersecurity work in order to improve how cybersecurity work, or how cybersecurity talent is identified, developed, recruited, and retained. So essentially, it's meant to be used broadly by not only those whose primary job is in cybersecurity, but also for those across the organization who need specific cybersecurity related knowledge and skills in order to mitigate risks. So essentially, NIST framework is a defined best practice. It's a consistent model that shares clear information about the cybersecurity workforce in order to help students, job seekers, and workers to develop, demonstrate, and improve their capabilities. It provides direct information about what a workforce needs to know. And so it can help in developing certificates, badging, and other verification techniques. And it helps to establish regular processes from things like curriculum development all the way to hiring and assessment. And so essentially, by using it as a foundation for curriculum and tools, and we're able to leverage that common language and approach to how cybersecurity is described, that it enables that consistent exchange of that information and really serves for a foundation of what we're hoping to advance, integrated ecosystem of cybersecurity education, training, and workforce development. So it can be used by employers looking to gauge workforce needs or to find that job-ready cybersecurity staff person. For this context, we're talking about how it could be used for educators and training and credential providers to align content and to develop content from. And then, of course, from that learner perspective, and by learners, again, we're looking at it broadly. It's the students as well as the people looking for a job or already employed. It can help with career awareness, and it can help with the planning, career pathing, and development of their work. And so how do we get from the interest level to where they want to go and next stages beyond? So as I said, I know I'm coming at it from a biased perspective, but I really think that having that common tool and that common language we can all align to is a really great way to advance this.
Thanks, Karen. Blair. You might be on mute, Blair.
We have to start everyone with you're muted, but that would not be today's world without having those words come up. Well, thanks everybody, and welcome. I'm really excited to share with you and to hear your questions. I sort of wanted to start with a little bit of addressing the problem, which I sometimes think isn't as well defined. We all talk a lot about the workforce shortage. We don't talk much about the cybersecurity faculty shortage. So I don't think that problem is as well known as it should be, and because it's such a chicken and an egg problem. We need to make sure that a lot of people understand that the workforce shortage cannot be solved till we solve the faculty shortage. Now, solving the faculty shortage is a long-term problem. But education is working very hard to try to address the workforce shortage while still dealing with their own shortage of faculty themselves. So schools have been scrambling to catch up with this. And I think there's the second issue, which is the lack of diversity, which we inherited from computer science, et cetera, et cetera. So we have this problem where we don't have enough faculty and we don't have enough diversity in this area. But I think the plus side is that cybersecurity students like cyber. So what I believe should be done is leveraging that general interest that is prevalent in students, and I don't have data on this, just lots of years in the classroom, but they of all, it's not the same type of solution where we're putting something that brings the same type of students to computer science. And so cyber brings different students and can help address that. So I think as we're developing resources, we need to leverage that. So we need to develop the interest to address the problem, which is all students need to learn cyber. So a couple of specific things that I think need to be done as we develop the curriculum and the resources is we first of all have to do two things in education as far as I'm concerned. We have to create a security mindset, because this has to be, and this is not just in computer science, it's not just in cyber, it's not just in IT. We have to get everybody to think of in a whether you can use the term adversarial thinking, but basically to think about security across all disciplines. The second thing we need to do is we need to teach cyber early and often. So it's not enough just for the cyber specialists to learn cyber skills. We need it across the entire curriculum. So again, I use that term early and often. So one of the first things that I think should be done is that we should add an intro to cyber class, and it should be required. Okay, so we are just, an intro to cyber can have a great deal of impact. And if we can, first of all, require it for our CS students and our IT students and our IS students, that's step one, but really let's add it to the core. So that'll help bring the interest, that'll help get students with the security mindset and also perhaps bring them to the major. I believe that we should teach principle-based cybersecurity, not just, many students, as we know, will learn technology, they'll go do it, but what they'll really come away with is general principles, things like the CIA triad, think like an adversary, these types of defense in depth. These concepts get ingrained in students and help them live a life of learning about cyber. So it instills those principles. Now, of course, we need resources for this. And like Karen, I have I have some personal thoughts about this as well, because we're all passionate people, we especially in education, we believe very strongly what we do. So I would like to offer a resource which is free, which is www.clark.center, which is a library of almost 1,000 learning objects created by faculty that span the cybersecurity, all the topics. And these are all free resources that have been developed with, which is one of my recommendations. You can't just throw resources at people. They have to be high quality. They have to have education in mind. They have to have active learning in mind. And to circle back to Karen, they have to be mapped to some of these frameworks, to the accreditation, to the CAE knowledge units, things like that. So Clark does that. It's just a beginning. It's a several-year project, but the resources on Clark are again, written by faculty. They use Bloom's taxonomy to create the learning outcomes. So the idea is that they will be, make faculty think about what level they want to teach to. And you have the ability to map to across a variety of frameworks. So if you're trying to get a CAE designation, you can search backwards that way too. So, I invite you to look at Clark. It covers everything from the intro to cyber through blockchain, through quantum computing, quite a few resources, and I hope that you can use them. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that they are 508 compliant. So you can use them for any type across your diversity of students. And they are also licensable by the Creative Commons license, so you can reuse and remix. Most of us, at least me, I can't, even if somebody gives me very good resources, I need to be able to change them before I teach. That's in some ways, that's how I make my own materials, and that we have that ability to do that with these resources. So, again, I think just to sort of sum up, I would say that we would need to leverage that interest and teach it across the curriculum. We need to teach it early, and we need quality resources that are mapped to frameworks and to, as we try to reach different levels, whether it be a CAE, whether it be accreditation, whether it be for the NICE workforce framework, use resources that immediately address those topics.
Thanks so much for that. Mary.
Hi, Randy. Thank you. I appreciate that this dialogue is happening on an international level, and I feel strongly about the foundational educational opportunities we offer our students. Brian Fonseca said it in the opening remarks. We have to advance the cyber education that's happening in the K-12 space. So as a K-12 educator and administrator, and someone that is passionate about meaningful workforce development, my focus turned specifically to cybersecurity education when I was with the National Cybersecurity Center in Colorado Springs. So the problem, as I see it, is our K-12 education systems and curriculum are critically behind the times and do not offer our children the benefits of meaningful technical education, while other nations are mandating that all students in K-12 systems become technically literate. We are leaving our own children behind, and it is horrible that we're doing that. So NICE has great frameworks, and some school systems that have both awareness and resources are doing a good job in the learning process and career discovery. But we still face this uphill battle because we simply do not have enough technical education offered and mandated in our K-12 systems. So Rodney Peterson is spot on when he talks about how important it is for teachers to understand career pathways that are not only realistic, but abundant. And the teachers also need to be technically literate themselves. So here are my ideas. My main idea revolves around involving the community. We do not have enough tech teachers. So school systems have to reverse the decades-long policies of closed doors. School systems for decades have said, okay, it's okay, parents, it's okay, community, we've got this. But guess what? They don't have it. Our school systems, and I'm an educator myself, we don't have it. We shut out employers and the community, mistakenly thinking that we, teachers, know how to prepare students with the skills that employers need, when teachers themselves are not technically literate. So employers need to be open to and generous about spending their time and resources with our school systems. And what our K-12 systems need to do, and I'll reiterate again what Brian said, we have to teach the right things. And Ambassador Mendez and I are on the same page as well. So here's what I feel strongly about. We need to update the curriculum to reflect the real skills and talent that have to be developed for the jobs of the future. I loved Blair's concept of a security mindset and the required intro to cyber courses to ingrain the right concepts and principles. Spot on. In 8th grade, in my opinion, nobody should graduate from eighth grade anywhere in the globe without knowing at least one programming language. It could be Python, Ruby, Java, C++, Scratch, whatever it is. because once the kid starts learning one and feels good about it, it's easy for them to learn the next one, and they're excited about going on. So learning a programming language before 8th grade builds confidence about their technical skills, so they choose additional technology classes in high school and beyond, and then prepare themselves for the jobs of the future. And then in high school, in my opinion, and I started writing policy about this when I was in Colorado, but I'm in Arizona now. I think the high school graduation requirements should allow 2 years of computer programming language as an option for the foreign language requirement. I don't know about everybody else on this call, but when I tried to study a foreign language for 2 years in high school, I was not fluent when I graduated from high school. But if I had been taking computer programming for 2 years, I would be fluent in many languages, probably. I would have been motivated, and I'd have technical skills for the real jobs of the future. The other thing I feel pretty strongly about is we need to have gender-specific programming. Girls stop wanting to compete with boys in middle school, so we lose them in STEM programming. But because of the unique ways girls think, learn, and collaborate with each other, we, the world, our nations are best served by encouraging them to learn together and build skills so their confidence grows. And then bring them back with the boys and let them compete with the boys, and they love it, right? So we all know that diverse teams of men and women in the workforce are strong. So we need to do what we can to attract and nurture girls to our field. Blair had also talked about the faculty shortage, and this is where I'm big on inviting the community in to help the teachers in the schools teach technology. These kinds of partnerships take time and a huge shift for educators because they have to share their classroom. But time and time again, these programs end up being a huge win for the school, a huge win for the community, and a strong win for the students. So there are ways to bring teachers up to speed, and I'm probably talking too long, but I had a really cool program in Colorado Springs called Coding with Cocktails, where we brought teachers in after school to an after school program for them to learn. We gave them snacks, we gave them wine, and we taught them about coding, programming, career paths, gave them hands-on experiences with robots that they got to take with them, bring back to their classrooms. The program was fun for teachers. It broke down a lot of barriers and ultimately benefited the students. And then you also can offer these kinds of programs for parents, because I got over and over, hey, we know cybersecurity is a great career path. This is the parents talking, but we don't know anything about it. Well, come on in. Why don't we have a coding with coffee program for parents, or extend that coding with cocktails program for parents and teach them more about what they can encourage their kids to be learning. So then finally, extracurricular, community, government, nonprofit, and employer-sponsored after-school clubs, camps, and cyber competitions have to happen. We have to be doing this, and we need the community to be involved to stand these kinds of programs up. And there's lots and lots of models out there. We also need to have the community and employers offer field trips so that students can come and meet and greet technology teams. If they've never seen where they could have opportunities to work in the future, they can't picture themselves there. And then finally, I encourage all employers to offer internships for high school kids so that they apply their academic skills in real world settings where employers can help encourage and mentor them so that they can choose those critical pathways to jobs of the future.
Thanks so much for that, Mary. And I think you have a lot of fans on the Coding with Cocktails.
You and I talked about that several years ago, Randy, and it's really, it goes over so well and teachers love it. So I can talk about that all day.
I believe it. Final speaker, Moniphia. And as Blair mentioned, we have to start off with, you might be muted.
Yes, you definitely need to start off with that. So I like the passion that I see coming out from the speakers here. And I'm always a damper on things, but I'm looking at this from different perspectives in terms of developing a curriculum for cybersecurity. I'm looking at it also based on the era in which we're living. How do we get this curriculum online? How do we develop specific programs for delivering cybersecurity education online? Are we just gonna see it as an alternative and move the traditional programs online? or do we develop specifically for this? Another thing to consider is, I liked the idea and the mention of the security mindset, where we have to keep in mind also that when teaching cybersecurity as opposed to history or math or even computer science and IT itself, the skills taught here can be directly linked to legal activity. Curiosity in human nature, and depending on the level at which we're teaching, that also has to be borne in mind. So we have to put a great emphasis on ethics and moving the curriculum online. Two of the models that I have drawn on in my practice of delivering at, I mainly train professionals and somewhat at the tertiary level. But the focus is to build out the competencies. And so looking at the NICE framework, that's one of the things that it does. It focuses on the competencies and how you get persons prepared for the workforce itself. And at our level, that is particularly important. Another model that I have looked at and used is the Chiropractic Model. And this was developed, it has been used for years, where you look at the influence of the training on your performance. How do you change the behavior? How do you ensure that transfer has taken place? Did the learner actually enjoy what they do? And so when we look at the what, the how, the why, and how we apply this curriculum, I think they apply this to developing a curriculum. I think the key point here for me is, how do we get all these competencies coming out in an online curriculum, given the stage at which we're at now? And yes, it will get somewhat back to normal soon, but it won't be totally as it was. So this is something that we really need to consider. How do we get these concepts that we need to get through to our participants in a cybersecurity training session through the online medium? And so that is what I was focusing mainly on. I dittoed most of what was said, and as I noted, I admire the passion, but in terms of the frameworks that we are all using, how do we get this to the online space? So my comments are more coming in of questioning and providing a solution, but it's something that I have been passionate about. When we're planning and designing the curriculum, yes, we keep in mind these competencies to build out the work role as defined in the NICE framework. But is there something different that we need to do to go online? Because when we're dealing with especially adult learners and at the tertiary level, no, we're going to be seeing a lot of what we deliver is going to be online.
Thank you for that, Moniphia. I think there's a lot of things that came out of the speaker's opening remarks. A few things that I want to highlight. Obviously, Clark database, you all saw that in the chat that was inserted there. NICE framework's really important. I do know, Karen, you correct me if I'm wrong, NICE framework is translated into Spanish and Portuguese. So for those in the audience worried about language issues there. But one of the things that came across on all speakers, one of you talked about in the context of online courses, right? You need broadband across a lot of areas that frankly don't have access to broadband, whether it be in rural communities or different parts of the Americas. And we talked about the faculty shortage, right? How do you keep faculty there or hire faculty when they can leave to the private sector and make a lot more money, right? So there's a lot of resource issues. Are there any thoughts from the panel, and I'll open it up to whoever wants it, as to how do you work in this resource-strained environment and understanding that the resources aren't going to get too much better? What are some potential strategies or options that you've seen that are low-cost, high-impact type solutions?
Well, I like that, what we've heard from others, that there are resources out there that we can utilize. That we don't have to start from scratch. That's one of the best things about the cybersecurity community is how much we work well together, how we try to support each other. And I think that by making sure that we are partnering, as we heard with some of the comments here, but with employers too. So looking at, not only local government things, working with your local libraries, there are lots of places where, because this is such a big, important issue, that there are lots of places where we can go ahead and reach out and build those ties and build those opportunities. I mean, there are going to be some issues, particularly when it comes to broadband. I think that's going to be one of the most difficult is getting into those rural areas, getting in those spaces where that's not available. But that's a challenge overall that I know that at least as a nation here that we're trying to address. But certainly when it comes to those other components, I think it is really about building that community, making sure that we are coordinated and we are working together so that we're not duplicating content. We're not causing conflict in terms of our work. And instead, we're all sort of going towards that similar goal.
And one of the things that we haven't talked about too much is the train the trainer, a lot of faculty development workshops, because faculty are very strapped on time, and giving them opportunities to come in and share resources and learn how to use them is extremely important. So just building on some of those efforts as well.
Well, I feel, again, I mentioned this earlier, and I feel so strongly that the community, there's so much demand for great cybersecurity and technology workers in general. The community is happy to help. But in our American public school systems, I can't speak to other school systems, but we have closed the doors for decades to community members coming in and helping out in the schools and parents that have skills. And so there are businesses that are willing to send, or it doesn't even have to be a business. It could be, the city of, or the state of, a government office, or whoever, the hospital system, willing to send somebody from their tech group into the schools to help teachers in technology classrooms. The Microsoft TEALS program, TEALS, is a wonderful program that supports and encourages this kind of partnership. And you don't have to recreate the wheel, because there really are great models. Nobody's saying you have to develop curriculum from scratch at this point. There's great curriculum out there. There's great models for coding with Clossy for girls, or cyber warrior princesses for girls, or competitions and hackathons for kids. There's wonderful models, but I do think that the community is the key, because we don't have additional resources. Some community is not going to suddenly raise taxes so that they can afford to pay a technology teacher what they could really be making on the outside. So bring them in partnership and find ways to do that. To me, that's really the only answer we have right now, because we just can't, the shortage of teachers, which we've referred to several times now.
In terms of a cheap and economic way to get the training done, despite the lack of access that may exist in some places to broadband, but if we use a multi-pronged approach, using different approaches to dealing with this, using the online, those who can get to certain places, if we could take it to them. I know of charities who take the awareness program into the rural areas to the people, so they get exposed to the cybersecurity that exists. So it's partnership, as was noted before, and using different approaches. You don't count out any approach. Yes, the traditional modes are there that we can use, but we must pair it with the new methods and try to get to the persons, because there actually are persons who are interested. I know we have had a shortage, not just with cyber, but with computer science, information technology personnel as a whole to get. I've worked with education systems that it's just a problem where that part is concerned. But we have to use what we say in Jamaica, joined up approach to get to the people and get it out there and get the training going. We can't sit and be deterred. It is the information age. It is the age of online, it's the age of technology, and this is technology-based. We need to get it out there.
Moniphia, go ahead, Karen.
I was sorry. I was just, I would be remiss if I didn't also point out that the Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week is coming up. It's launching October 18th through 23rd. And I think it's those kinds of things too that can be really helpful. So being able to point to existing resources there and really becoming, I mean, that's there's all sorts of people who are contributing content to that and really all working with that common goal of making certain that people are aware of the importance of this as a career and really speaking to one of our goals for this, for one of our strategic plan goals is to really be able to reach out to those teachers, to those people who are helping to identify careers, whether it's school counselors, whether it's or parents even, and how do we make sure that they are there? So it isn't a one touch only, it's a multi-pronged kind of approach. Sorry for jumping in there.
No, thank you for that. Moniphia, I do have a follow-up question. I think taking the Jamaica experience, right? You were part of the team that was responsible for building the national strategy around cybersecurity. What were some of the internal debates on these issues that we're talking about now, and how did you kind of come out with a strategy to be able to respond to these kind of risks?
That would have been the old strategy. I think there's a new strategy now. But there are conversations, and as I noted before, that's where I got the joined up approach. We realized that we needed the input of all sectors, and public and private sector had to work together. One, you had different ideas on how things can be done. And at the same time, we had different experiences, because the fact is the experience you may have in the academic institution or in central government or as a private sector company will be different. And when you get all those ideas coming into one melting pot, and I can draw from the strategy, the specific area of public education and awareness, what we had to do to get that into the rural areas. Yes, I am hung up on this online training, but I agree that in my cultural context, where I was based, that wasn't going to work. So we had to work with private sector companies, some that had no idea what we were talking about, but we were able to get the message across to them. They saw the importance and they worked with us to go into the deep rural areas. We brought our own technology and had the kids there exposed to cybersecurity. So it's working together, working with different areas, getting the academics on board to see, especially the researchers, to see what new developments are there, what is happening, how we can do certain things, and getting the private sector companies who have most of the resources, because again, we have to look at the fact that a lot of these things cost. So they had the resources to get us there, and we in the policy development of central government, we just worked together basically and put it out there. You have to see the importance. We have to get the passion going. And so when you have that working in your favor and you can put together a team that is willing to take it to the people, to get the training out there, get people interested so they would go on to do the core training to become whether an ambassador or a cybersecurity professional or someone in the law enforcement to investigate cyber crimes. And there are another set of people that probably most important here that you have to work with also, because as I mentioned, the skills that we impart to others can be used negatively and can run people into trouble. So having them on board and to look at that side, the legal people to look at that side, all of us working together is really what is gonna work.
Thank you, Moniphia. I do want to go to the questions in the audience. We have quite a few here. The first question is from Stephen Gonzalez and Blair. I'd like to throw it to you first, if that's all right. The question is, what is being done to help educate organizational leadership to better understand how to use cybersecurity professionals that already exist? And this affects the new workforce as they need to go into organizations and do not know how to recruit the correct individuals. I'm sure as an academic, we hear that all the time. We're not recruiting the correct individuals. So how do we kind of help our leadership or organizational leadership understand the cybersecurity professionals do exist?
Now, by organizational leadership, do you mean industry or academic or government or yes?
Yeah, it's a little broad, but yes.
Well, I go to, it's a difficult problem. Let me address the industry first. Industry, whenever you go to something with industry, they have very specific needs, and everybody believes what the needs are for their corporation or what everybody needs. So an academic, it's very frustrating to try to, there's no way we can address all the needs. We also get a lot of requests for more hands-on, and so education is definitely moving in a direction of doing competency-based assessments, things like that. So that is definitely something that is happening in the educational space, paying more attention to not just what did they learn, but can they show me something? However, I will step back from that and just say a little, okay, you're having trouble finding people, which is what we hear, like hire people with good background and in the skills that are good. Many of these skills, like if you have a good computer science degree, can be segued to a cyber, or if you're looking for IT, these can be segued. So I feel like in some ways the employers are trying to move everything back to us. When again, we have a shortage, right? And I'm not trying to apologize, because this is, we have trouble staffing our classes, hiring professionals because they leave. But we can't, I guess what I'm buying for is there's value to a good either computer science degree or technology degree or math degree or cybersecurity degree, without being necessarily specific to every industry in terms of what it is. So because there's such a shortage, sometimes I think you're trying to raise the bar and you can't even hit the bar you're trying to hit. So in some ways, I almost want to tell some of the organizational leaders, they just have to give a little more faith to the employees they have, and realize that nobody's going to come out with all the skills that they need. And there will have to be, we're probably going to have to do more hands-on training at the other side. So in addition to beefing up the academic side, we need to beef up the training so that employers can have their people ready. But in some ways, it all goes back to K-12. We need to get a wider pool. We need to get a wider, more diverse pool. So in some way, that's really the solution, because we're working as hard as we can to get the academic institutions up to par. I'm at the undergraduate and graduate level, and I don't know if you all are familiar with the CAE designations, this audience, but the NSA has CAE designations that they give schools, that a really good way for schools to grow their cyber programs if they don't have one, or if they're trying to get recognition and funding, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think, first of all, as far as the organizational leaders at schools, look at some of these designations and support your schools to get to them. So that helps come up with a formal way to build your programs. As far as industry, again, we're doing our best trying to come up with these. Cybersecurity is new. Let's not forget that. We're still having the growing pains of computer science, which is still rebuilding their curriculum, and IT, which is rebuilding their curriculum. So I think the only organizational structure I didn't hit is government. And I think main thing I can say to them is money and support. We need money to build some of these things. We need support for getting these programs, and even national credit, things like that. And, so that's that, I guess that's in a nutshell. Hope that answers the question.
It does. Mary, do you want to add to that? I know the K-12 piece was mentioned.
Well, tell me that, reframe the question again.
So this is part of the larger discussion, right? How we can't recruit the right people, or we can't recruit enough people, or the discussion of we're asking for, I think the way it was framed is we're trying to hire, I think, data ninjas. How do we, find the correct workforce? And Blair brought up, we really have to start at the K-12 space.
Well, and Blair's right, but also I think that was the question a little bit about how do we train the leaders of organizations too? And so I'm kind of stuck. I was sitting here thinking, I'm stuck on it's really an opt-in thing. They know that they have cyber issues, and a lot of times leadership is not paying attention until something catastrophic happens. to their organization, right? And then they're cleaning up or they're paying a ransom or whatever they're doing. So it does have to be a real opt-in situation. You have to have programs and you have to invite them. Again, the interaction with the community. I mean, invite business leaders in to school systems and say, come and tour and see what our kids are up to, see the competitions they're involved in, see the hackathon that they're going to. Look at the little robotics stuff that kids are doing when they're really young, just to have the kids become more technical. So I think that's part of it. But you have to build these programs. I mean, I can't say it enough. To me, after years in this field, until you have community partnerships where people that are working in cybersecurity roles and technology roles, because they realize they don't get any women to apply for their jobs that they post, or they get very few women, or like, here's something interesting at ASU, we can't hire people from other countries. We can give them jobs on campus when they are students, but once they graduate, we can't hire them. So because we're not going to pay for we're not going to sponsor visas. So we have a big problem that we're not attracting the right kinds of people or enough people. We're not attracting girls and keeping them in it. We're not offering enough technology education so that kids get on the pathway and then stay on the pathway. But I think one of the keys there is to bring in people from the community and have them talk about how cool their jobs are and have them help teach in the classroom that the kid is sitting in. And it's very impactful. I go and visit some schools where they have the Microsoft Teals program going on, and you'll see how powerful this is. So, it's kind of more of the same. I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over, but I feel so strongly about all this stuff because I saw it. I saw it play out in Colorado.
On that continuum too, we hear oftentimes, we're talking about that sort of cyber ninja role. The issue is people will come and say, I want to hire that and only that we're not seeing a lot of early career positions being offered. So it's about developing those pathways. It's about not only, at that K-12 and even the higher ed sort of levels of training, but also looking at things from a different perspective of how do we bring people in early career? How do we then develop them? It used to be, of course, stay in an organization for a decade or more, and we know that's not realistic now. However, if we are able to develop career pathways within an organization and say, look, you're not going to be in the same job for 10 years, but you might be able to have a growth here. You might be able to shift from this position to another organization. There's things that are here that we all need to sort of help contribute to the growth of cybersecurity professionals overall. And there are ways to do that at all stages. And that includes, opening up the doors to that, broaden that pipeline, be aware of the different kinds of perspectives that different people can bring and the importance of that and the beneficial impact that has to an organization, that having a diverse representation, a diverse team can improve and have a greater impact on what the goals are. So really thinking about these things broadly as that's one of the reasons why we introduced competencies in our revision last year too, is to really be able to look at qualified candidates for some of these emerging technologies too, that maybe haven't been brought into the more standardized kinds of curriculum yet. They're new. This is a changing, constantly evolving ecosystem. So how can we go ahead and bring in people through different kinds of doors as well?
Karen, thank you for that, because you reminded me again about how important internship pathways are. And so again, so many companies just don't get it. They don't know how to set up an internship. And so again, tons of models out there, but oftentimes entry level, the first step into a cybersecurity pathway is a call center job. And that might be great for a lot of people, but a call center job, it doesn't have to be that way. If companies and hospital systems and cities and villages and towns and counties, if they open up their IT department to a few interns every year, they have a chance to vet and nurture and mentor and mold their future workforce. And
Mhm.
so, they don't have to worry about, oh, gee, I'm hiring an entry level person, because they can look back and say, this kid has been interning here for 2 years. And we see their willingness to learn and add skills. And if we want to send them, they'll go to the next class or whatever. So internships are for really relatively small investment. But I think a lot of, again, businesses, industries, hospital systems, school systems, government entities, they don't know how to set up an internship for a high school kid. And that's where it needs to start. Those internships need to start. Technology internships should start in high school. I feel really strongly about that. And kids can go around the company and do desktop support for people that, need their passwords reset or whatever. You start them there. You start them there when they're 16 or 17 years old. And, they build the confidence. They build that confidence set. So I love that model.
Thank you for that. I do want to get to a few more of these questions. One, I'll tackle briefly. Maureen Okoli asked if there's any curriculum development for PhD programs in cyber and public universities. I echo what Blair had mentioned with regard to Centers for Academic Excellence. NSA has Cybersecurity Center for Academic Excellence across the United States, over 200 different universities there. You can see what kind of program offerings, many of which are masters, but I would assume there's a couple PhD programs there as well, but just wanted to tack that. I do want to turn a question here, and I'll go to Blair, then Moniphia, with regard to a question a comment that was raised earlier, which was, how do we train teachers? How do you become a teacher? And those trying to enter cybersecurity as a teacher or a professor or otherwise, how do you get there?
Well, first of all, interesting when we talk about loop back to the discussion before. One thing that industry can do is have some of their people teach part-time. We are dying for adjunct professors. So this would be something. Now, I always say it's a little bit of money and a lot of love. So, but if the employer can encourage this, it's a way, it helps all of us. But really, I don't know a great way to do this besides lots of workshops, and this NSA has been giving a lot of grants recently for individual institutions. I know that there's a big effort in Florida to come up with workshops. Many of these are online. And then the problem is, and so the workshops, the faculty can go for a week and learn about this and all different levels. They're filling up like crazy. The demand is exceeding the supply. But those are a great way and they're free. Almost all of these are free. So, look for more of these, I guess is what I would say. We need, any resources you develop really needs parallel. I don't like to use the word training or teaching, but parallel workshops with that so that the faculty can learn, can use it. I mean, bottom line is most teachers of all levels are so busy that they don't have time unless it's set aside where they go and say, I'm going to go use this curriculum. I'm going to learn about this curriculum. And then in these labs and these ranges that are available. And then I can take it to the classroom. There was a one part question, right?
The other part was with regard to, others becoming teachers, right? So if you're interested in becoming a cybersecurity teacher, what are some of the pathways that you've seen that's been successful, or maybe experiences from your pathway? Well, I mean, many of us, did not, the chicken and the egg, there were no cyber programs. So, we were becoming cyber, experts. I always hesitate to use that word because it's needed. At the K-12 level, they're still struggling to get technology teachers. So cyber is like the dream. So I think what Mary said, we're going to all have to get together and we're going to have to, come up with ways to share, because I can't imagine a situation where you actually have it's really difficult to get a cyber instructor at the K-12 level when we're struggling at the university level. So, there are increasingly more master's degrees in cyber being offered. And then that's a way to teach certainly at the community college level, or teach at the adjunct level at a 4-year. And then the PhD programs are slowly evolving for those students. And boy, do we need the cyber PhDs.
Hey, this also reminds me of the power of externships. When you offer a teacher, a K-12 teacher, 6 weeks of an externship over the summer, pay them handsomely, and have them come into a corporate environment, to the IT department, and have them sit around and learn from people and teachers. Most teachers have never worked in those kinds of environments, and they have fun doing that. But if you dangle the carrot and have them mentor with other adults in the area, and have them learn about, they end up learning so much about the business setting and, something that's not in their wheelhouse of what they know, because they're educators. Teachers, again, bring that experience back into the classroom. They know so much more about technology. And I've seen programs where they supplement that with technology classes, right? And then, and they know a lot about pathways. So that's another way to just throw something out there for teachers to, help it increase their skill sets.
And I have to add, or Karen Leusner is going to shoot me, the Gen Cyber camps, which first of all are a great resource for students, they're specific teachers camps. So I don't know how I didn't answer this when we talked about K-12, but every summer NSA offers over 100 free Gen Cyber camps, and about a large proportion of those are for teachers. So look in your area; those should start to be coming up for next summer very soon. And so that is, again, I apologize for not bringing that up as a resource.
From my cultural context, and even for the question before where you asked about accessing cybersecurity professionals, I think the issue we have here, the moment we get them trained, they migrate, they tend to leave. And so that's a problem we have, where we are not able to adequately compensate our cybersecurity professionals. In terms of the teaching, from where I sit, we would be dependent mainly on online resources or train-the-trainer programs. So I know, for example, as is this moment, I'm developing one of those to get persons to try to build out our capacity, to get persons who are able to go now and teach what they have learned. So we have like 8 weeks of cybersecurity core training, and then you have 3 weeks of train the trainer. So you're basically trained to go train other persons in cybersecurity. So that's one way in which we do it. The other programs that are available would be online for our teachers, but we already, as with most other places, struggle with information technology and computer science teachers. And so it just extends into the cybersecurity world.
Thank you for that. I'm going to try to merge. I know we have 31 questions and no way we're going to get to all of them. So I'm going to try to merge a few of these questions. I see a question here from Mitchell Chang from Trend Micro that says they have a number of programs in both rich and poor communities. How do you prioritize efforts? You also have a question from Dario Navarro, who says he's from Uruguay. And says that cybersecurity training or access to training in cybersecurity is very low and difficult to access. And then Nikki Hendricks talks about how in these rural communities and economic communities, it's very hard to get mentors from industry, right? So a lot of things there about just general access and prioritizing from both the learner perspective, but also from the employer and the trainer perspective. Any thoughts from the group?
In terms of getting to the rural areas, and I understand it's the same here where you don't have access. One, you have the few persons who are here, who are qualified and working in the field. They are so strapped with work that they find very little time to get out into the areas unless you have a specific focus on, as I mentioned before, a foundation or charity organization that is doing this. That may be a challenge, but access to the professionals, it has been an issue, maybe for a while, but as we work to building our capacity and building out that for cybersecurity in the region as a whole in terms of CARICOM, we hope to have that somewhat addressed. where there's access to more professionals. There are more persons there to go and mentor and find the time, because I can speak from my perspective that I volunteer to be mentors, and sometimes the time where sometimes you don't even remember that you were supposed to be somewhere where the mentoring session is taking place. So it's gonna take time management. It does take time management on the part of the mentor. So it's not that they're not willing sometimes, but the time and the availability becomes an issue.
Thank you for that. We have another question from Modiana McPherson, asking specifically, and this is based on your experience or knowledge of the field, but what assistance are there to provide for developing nations to help them bridge this cybersecurity skills gap? Many developing nations do not have the human resources to train the teachers at the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. I'll raise very quickly one of the programs that I know, particularly with the OAS that we run. There's a lot of reskilling and upskilling programs that the OAS provides free of charge to many people, particularly in Latin America and the Caribbean. So that's just one example of that. There's a number of different private sector companies that do similar things. I know Microsoft, Trend Micro, a number of others do as well. One of the things I would encourage the private sector companies, those that are in the room right now, come in with goodwill and not just trying to sell a service. That's a common reference I hear from my Latin American friends. You want to help us, but then you want to sell us and take our money. So that's a common thing. So some goodwill efforts there in communities that need it, with the long-term expectation that it's going to provide a stronger resilience across the region. So I'll cite the OAS program. I know Christina Rodriguez Acosta, who's moderating our upskilling, reskilling program. They'll talk a lot about that there. So definitely want to do that. Any other thoughts from our panelists on this topic about helping bridge the cybersecurity skills gap, particularly in developing nations?
I guess I'm the only one here from a developing nation. But in bridging the gap would be more training. And that point that was mentioned about you want to help us but not sell us something. It's something that I find can be very distracting, and persons in trainings then complain about that. But you understand also, yes, they're helping you, but they need to come out with their product. But additional training and we thank the OAS who offer us a lot of training here in the region. And building on that training with the trainers really is the way to go to build out the capacity.
And one of our strategic plan goals is to expand international outreach and be able to do more. I mean, the NICE framework is not it's an open resource. And so what we're trying to do is make sure, again, that we have that integrated ecosystem. So, we've been doing a lot of efforts in making sure that we have outreach and we're communicating with and aware of efforts that are going on and how we can perhaps support or at least help them align to some existing tools. But yeah, it's difficult to be able to, of course, do as much as it's needed.
Right up there with world peace.
Right.
And that would be good of NICE, since I know for sure NIST frameworks are widely used.
Exactly.
Aligned to here in the region.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I have another question, although I suspect it would be discussed in our next panel looking at rethinking diversity, is with regard to a question from Eduardo Lombard saying 73-year-old volunteer in the community only for those organizations that invite him. Why is senior citizens not used or invited for their expertise? This includes retired school teachers, police officers, and many other social services folks, right? So I want to broaden this out to say what, thinking about those other underrepresented communities or those other resources that countries do have that they're just not utilizing. So thoughts from the group. I saw both Mary and Karen unmute. So Mary, if I can go to you first.
Okay, so I'll try to talk fast. But the best cybersecurity teachers and technology teachers that I met and got to know in Colorado when I was at the NCC were retired technology guys, IT guys from corporate America. And they brought their skill set into the classroom, and they were passionate. They knew that they couldn't hire enough people. They couldn't develop enough people. So they knew about that, and they became outstanding educators. So, and then I have observed this for a long time, first of all, as I age, but second of all, as people are in the workforce longer and longer, and maybe they're towards the end, they're getting close to retirement and they want to slow it down or work part-time. There's lots and lots of opportunity instead of all or nothing. There's an opportunity in there for maybe sharing jobs, or, you know, teaching a few weeks of some sort of cool camp, or running hackathons or whatever. And that is such a great question. And we need to talk about that more, because there are people that are retirees and that are old, but still have older and still have lots and lots of energy. And they can bring that energy to teach teachers, train the trainer, teach students, run really, really cool and interesting activities and clubs for kids. But, you know, they're not invited. You know, we don't reach out to them. We should be doing that more. There was a really neat model in a little itty bitty Colorado mountain town. They couldn't attract technology teachers. So what they did is they established a summertime camp program for kids, and they took really what ended up being really nice hotel rooms, and they invited teams of educators to collaborate together and lead cybersecurity camps for those kids. Those teachers did not have to pay for their hotel rooms in the beautiful Colorado Rocky Mountains, and they got to teach for half a day and then enjoy the beautiful rural setting out there. And the teachers loved it. It was, you know, they had the skill set to be teachers. And that was a really creative way that the whole town got together and say, hey, we need our kids to be more technical. How can we do it? We'll do it in the summertime and bring teachers up here and do it in this beautiful setting that teachers, you know, can't afford to live in those expensive mountain towns. But that was a way that they took a different approach to bring people there, and they put them up and they said, hey, teach our kids for a few weeks. And they worked together to find curriculum and all that kind of stuff. And the teachers got a little stipend because the whole community got together and invited them. It was a cool model.
Karen, did you want to touch on that? I saw you on mute.
You know, Mary just brought up so many great points. It's almost, you know, I don't really have much more to add. I was just going to say I keep bringing up the community concept, and we have several communities of interest where people can come and engage with each other. And I think just continuing to engage with the community, even pre and post retirement. We've mentioned today too about mentoring, the importance of those kinds of relationships and building, those, having people be aware of the variety of different kinds of jobs in this space too. And not just, different kinds of cybersecurity roles, but even those that maybe aren't as directly cybersecurity, but have cybersecurity needs or requirements. I think that it is just expanding perspectives on what it is. And that includes, of course, making sure that those people who want to stay involved can stay involved and do stay involved.
Thank you for that. We are running out of time, but so about 6 questions ago, we had 31 questions. Now we have 33. So I will try to merge the final 2 together. So we'll start off with Moniphia, because you were called out in the question from Nicole Hendrickson. From Moniphia, as a person from the Caribbean, which is sometimes behind technologically, how do you think we can get more women to be interested in cybersecurity? And I want to pair that with Diego Pinto's question about how do we motivate folks. It's very broad. So how do we motivate folks to study cybersecurity? So we'll start there with Moniphia, and then we'll just go across the board thereafter. So.
I'm not sure we're behind with technology, but how do we get women involved? I think this is so international, where women are daunted by anything mathematics and computer science-ish. And so what I personally have been doing through my foundation and with any company I work with is try to encourage females. I work with the Girls in ICT Day and other women put on organizations to help to encourage females to get in there, to tell them that it can be done. So we have been doing some work where that is concerned. We're getting more females on board. I honestly must say I didn't realize the stark difference until I started digging down myself to realize that there really is a lack of female in the field. I know that existed with computer science because throughout my studies, most times I've been the only female in the class, or one of three. And so I knew that from the computer science background, and it has extended into the cybersecurity world. So we have been encouraging them. I know recently there was a hackathon, an OAS event for females. I didn't get to participate in that, but I know females who went ahead and did so. So it has been a challenge to get them out there. There's also there's a lot of social factors that come into play where that is concerned, but we have been working on getting that somewhat lessened. In terms of your second part of the question was encouraging
folks to pursue careers in cybersecurity.
Yes, we have been doing that, but also I have been doing it with caution because I always tell people you don't get into this field for the wrong reasons. You need to have a particular mindset. You need to see the bigger picture and to see how you can contribute as an individual to developing the field and just being a cybersecurity professional. I find persons are drawn to it, especially the younger males seem to be quite drawn to it. But what I encourage is having it done in a controlled manner, not to reduce the take-up, but to let them see exactly what they're about. Is like having someone join like a cadet force where you're training them to use guns and all that, but they're not really going to use it against anyone. That sort of mentality that we're trying to get across. We have been trying to recruit persons from within the professional ranks. We're looking to extend. There has been take-up of short courses, but again, as have been mentioned throughout this discussion, is that academia needs to catch on and offer the courses, because what you find, as is now, I'm unable to find in the region a full-scale cybersecurity degree course. I find short courses or a tack on to a computer science course. And so, yes, we have the take-up of that, and that is not putting out a professional per se. We need academia to really step up and offer these courses. I probably am to blame too. I should probably be helping to develop some of those courses. But that is where we are now. You have persons willing to take up, persons coming out of the high school scenario, because I know CHC has stepped up somewhat to add cybersecurity to, as the Caribbean Examinations Council, to add cybersecurity to their fifth form school exit exam. So that is there. We just need to ensure that we keep that going on. They also have it at the advanced level, computer science and information technology, that includes some form of cybersecurity. So we need some continuity to ensure that persons continue and we have the capacity that we need in the field.
Thank you for that. Karen, Blair, Mary, 30 seconds if you all want it. So. Karen, if you want to go first.
I just would like to thank you. I don't really have anything to add to that other than, I really do think it is about expanding awareness of the different types of roles that can be, worked in this field, and really just being able to, not look for fit, which oftentimes is a key word for the same as who's already here, but really expanding the who's at the table and thinking maybe outside of computer science, outside of IT, who has the skills, who has the capabilities. That's more important than who has the path that you're expecting. You want to make sure that people can do the work, not necessarily that they fit what you think they should look like or feel like or where they come from.
Thank you for that. Blair?
Well, first of all, I think that it kind of goes back to interest. I think cyber is a very broad field. So if we can find out things that interest different people, I mean, for example, and this is a little bit of using my experience, but I found that the girls tend to like secure coding. There's some of the things that we've been doing to get the same students exactly to say what Karen is saying is, that's not the right way. Cyber's a big field. Let's tap into the interest areas to bring different types of students to the table. And I guess the last thing would be, one of the things that's been found for particularly in female students is they like careers that make a difference. And so if we can emphasize the aspect that cyber is not necessarily an adversarial field, but it's something you're saving your country or protecting your family, then perhaps that can help as well.
All right, Mary, final 30 seconds.
Okay, so I will always go back to start young, start teaching in grade school. And I do love separating the girls. Separate the girls, girls love to learn and work together in gaggles. They love to collaborate with each other. They love to be part of a little team. So let them do that, and then let them be competitive against another team or against the boys. And that will show them. But I think it was Blair, or Karen, that said, the cybersecurity field is so big. There's so many different ways to go. And when you tell a girl, hey, do you want to get the bad guys? They say, yeah, I don't want to carry a gun, but I'll sit behind a desk and get the bad guys. Girls love that. So there are a lot of different ways to go and little pathways to go, but we have to build their confidence and we have to start young.
Thanks so much for that. Thank you to our 4 speakers for a fantastic panel. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We will begin again at 2 p.m. So please stick around with us for the next 10 minutes, and we'll start our next panel looking at innovating or rethinking diversity and inclusion in cybersecurity. Thanks, everyone.